welcome to Soul Symbols. My name is Shelley. I'm a writer, an astrologer, and a card reader, and I'd like to welcome you to my channel. Happy Tuesday. It is How to Tarot Tuesday, and what that is it's a video series to every week we talk about one of the 78 card tarot. The beginning of the video, the first half of the video, we talk about the symbolisms in the card. The first deck is always the Rider-Waite-Smith. And then I choose two other decks that I think best represent the card in question. And we use those three decks to talk about the symbolisms of the card, the symbolism of the card. Now, after we have gone through the how-to part, the second half of the video is a reading to show how that card manifests in your life. So at any time, if you ever want to skip straight to the reading part, there are timestamps in the description box below, as are the names and the authors of the decks that I use. Now, today, because we're talking about a little bit of a more tougher card, I always say that there are no bad cards in tarot, but today we are talking about the card that represents mental anguish and, sleepless nights and feeling really guilty. So when we start getting into the heavy hitters, I go ahead and I like to pull out an oracle deck that I think when we get into the card reading part, an oracle deck that'll help us clarify the read. And today I went with The Answer is Simple cards by Sonia Choquette. So again, when we get to the reading part, and if you want to skip straight to that, the timestamps are in the description box below. I'm going to go through some very brief announcements. If you want to jump straight to the how-to part, again, please click on the timestamp. But I did get a request that asked whether or not I could do videos that talks about my deck collection, like the decks that I use, the oracle decks that we use. And I really want to, seeing as that it is coming up on the holiday season, and a lot of times, I know completely, a lot of times I'm drawn to a deck because I see it in a video, and with holidays times coming up, maybe there are decks that you would be interested in purchasing. So what I'm going to do is I honestly have a lot of decks, and I am going to do a final count of them. I've tried in the past. I have a lot of them, but what I will do is I will need to accommodate the request, I'll need to break it up into a few different videos, which is fine. I think that would work better for everyone. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to post one video that is all of my tarot decks. I have 13 tarot decks, and we'll go ahead and do one video that has all of them, regardless of their art theme. And then after that, I'm going to do, believe it or not, there's going to be a series of 11 other videos that talk about the oracle decks that I have, and I might revisit some of the one of the decks for tarot as well. So it's going to be themes like, the earth magic oracle decks and tarot decks, the modern art oracle decks and tarot decks, and then, flower, psychology and self-help, things like that. I just think that might break it down into smaller videos that would be easier for you, and then you can just go straight to, instead of having one really ridiculously long video, it would be more like 20 to 30 minute video, and you can choose the one that you want. The tarot video might be a little bit longer, but the rest of them should be pretty brief, and it would let you see the decks that you want to see and go straight to the content. Also, I will be doing a separate video for dice and charms, and I will be doing a separate video for playing cards and card games, which I think are very interpretable. It is part of the materials that I use. So if you are interested in that, I am going to try to have those posted maybe as an additional video once a week. Those might be coming out on a slightly different schedule. I always post How to Tarots on Tuesdays and the weekly energy card reading on Saturday. Those two videos will remain constant, but these other deck collection videos might come out on sporadic days. Like you might see one on a Wednesday, might see one on a Friday. I'm going to try to post them as I can. Again, I don't receive any profit for filming the videos, and sometimes, and especially near the holidays, I might be getting a little bit more busy, and I want to have these videos out for you. But if you see the collection videos at various times, just please check back, and I will also post the information on my YouTube channel. And in that same vein, if you, I'm sorry, not just on my YouTube channel, on my Instagram. And speaking of which, if you follow me on Instagram, it is soulsymbols.yt. So it's soul symbols period YT for YouTube. I did post a picture of some flowers that I got, and the flowers are here. I just wanted to let you know they are here. I try to put them on the table, but they're just a little too tall. So they are here, and they're blessing our reading today because, again, we're talking about a little bit of a toughie card. But that said, we're going to try to get that out for you. And I hope that makes this year a little bit better. I know sometimes watching flip throughs and reviews on cards, especially the history of the cards and, the reason why, the reader was attracted to them. So, all right, so stay tuned for that, but let's go ahead and get started. We're going to jump in. Today we are talking about another one of those toughie cards. The sword suit is about thoughts, and it's about mental activity. So today we are going to go up against one of the more tougher cards in this suit. Today we are talking about the Nine of Swords. And when you look at the Nine of Swords, the first thing that you see a person, it looks like a man, sitting up in bed. And there's a dark wall behind him, and hanging on the wall you see 9 swords, and the hilt of all the swords looks like they're pieced together, right? It almost looks like a chain with the hilt of the sword. You see the person leaning with their head in their hands, looking like they can't sleep. On their comforter you see roses, but then you also see the symbolism of all of the zodiac signs and the signs for the planets. Like here you see the sign for the sun, you see Pisces, you see Aries, you see Saturn, you see Moon. And what it is their bed looks like a very hard bed, but what you see is that underneath it you see somebody who looks like they are in battle. So when you look at it, it looks like a wooden bed, but carved in it, you see one person lunging forward with a sword and another person taking the blow. And what that is that in fencing or in sword fighting or in the 18th century, this would be considered the coup de grace. And what that means is when somebody finally wins a sword fight and runs you through. So here, the first thought that you see when you see this is you think somebody who is in mental anguish. You see somebody who is absolutely despairing, right? It's somebody who cannot sleep, someone who is awake at night, and they are either regretting their actions or they are absolutely, and especially with the way the swords are lined up, it's like they're in gridlock in their head. They're terrified. They can't sleep. They are completely paralyzed with either worry or guilt or both. Now, with the 8 of Swords that we saw last week, a lot of times that is feeling trapped as well. But with that, it's the 9 is almost like a higher octave of that. It's almost like that trapped feeling has gotten worse. With the 8 of Swords, the woman has a way out. She's just not seeing it, right? But the 9 of Swords is like feeling like absolute despair. And the way that I always kind of separate the two cards is that, the 8 of Swords, I kind of think of it as like being, oh, well, I really want maybe, to put it in a work context, maybe you want to change careers and you think that you can't. But you really can. It would just be difficult and you're not seeing the progression of how you would do it. The 9 of Swords is like feeling like you lost your job and like this is the nightmare card, right? This is card readers read this as the nightmare card, meaning the thing that keeps you awake at night, right? A lot of times it can be like it can, if you see it next to Pentacles card, it can be money related, because goodness knows the 3 things that keep us awake at night, worrying about family, maybe you're worried about someone's health. That can also be a Pentacles thing. But a lot of times it's worrying about money. And again, while the 8 of Swords is, well, I want to do something different, but I don't know how. I feel so trapped. The 9 of Swords is is really that, this money was due a month ago. They're going to evict me. What am I going to do? Right. And just trigger warning, with this year, if you're watching this at the time it posts, this year, this card could be coming up for a lot of people. And it absolutely breaks my heart because there are folks who are very, affected by the pandemic, people who are not working, people who are not able to pay their rent. It's like this would be that kind of Nine of Swords moment. Like, okay, the other thing is it's that thought, it's the fear that, okay, at any minute I could lose it all and there's nothing I can do about it. Right? Tomorrow I could have the notice on my door. Maybe you had the notice on your door 3 weeks ago and you're just waiting. It's kind of waiting for it's the card of waiting for the other shoe to fall. Now, one thing that is big with it, especially on the mental anguish side, is that a lot of times it's feeling like you've reached your limits. Sometimes this can be a card of mental breakdown. It can be just not being able to bear it anymore. Sometimes it really can be that you're having nightmares, that you're really, things are really seeping into your subconscious. A lot of times it can be that feeling depressed. And I will go ahead when we get to the third deck, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but it's kind of like in biblical terms, it talks about, walking through the valley. And it's funny, there's a great song that it's from the early aughts, from the early 2000s, and it's called I think it's by the musician's name is Jenny Owens, 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 and it's a religious song, and it's called If You Want Me To. And it's like, I will walk through the valley if you ask me to, if you want me to. And it's having the dark night of the soul. It's really that going through a really, really, really mind altering time, hitting your lowest point, right, mentally. A lot of times it's not being able to see any joy. And a lot of times it is that kind of hopelessness that makes you want to cry. Now, sometimes it can be stress related. That's something that's keeping you up at night. And for the second deck, I went with the Vice Versa Tarot. And this is really a beautiful card because there's no formal card back. The card back is actually considered to be the card in reverse. But on the front of the card, you see someone who's looking at 9 swords, and you can see he's sitting on a bed, and the sun is coming up. But it's almost like he's not even looking at the sun. He's like looking off in the distance as if he's preoccupied in his thoughts. So again, it plays into those worries that keep you up at night. It's like, maybe you're feeling a lot of anxiety. A lot of times if you see this next to, character cards, like if it represents people, maybe it could represent the threat of something. Maybe, again, if this has to do with people, maybe, some kind of payment is coming due. If you're younger, it could be a bullying thing. Maybe you have to go to school tomorrow and you're really dreading it because someone is harassing you. Maybe it can be, kind of like not wanting to go. Sometimes if it's job related, if you're doing something that you really dread, but you have to do it, it could really be that I don't want to go back. I don't want to do that anymore. It feels kind of, it's making you feel overwhelmed. Sometimes if this is health related, maybe you or someone is sick in your family and you don't want to go back to the hospital, you don't want to be tested again, you don't want to hear the bad news, and it really is. It's just keeping you awake at night with worry. Sometimes it can be a lot of brooding or like just seeing the negative in something. And the one thing is that this does kind of carry into the second meaning, where sometimes it can be that you're just feeling really, really hard on yourself. Like you're doubting that something is going to go well. Maybe you feel like you're not adequate, or you think, something is not, going to go your way. Sometimes it is that really bad rumination, and we talked about it in the Eight of Swords, but it's almost like, again, it's almost like a step up where you really don't think that anything, no good is going to come out of it, but yet you still run it over and over again in your head. Again, maybe you're worried about a child. Maybe you're worried about a spouse. Maybe you're worried about money. You could be worried about a parent, or, something at work. Sometimes it can be a lot of, just sorrow or slander. The other thing with it being swords, maybe something happened that's really, where you just don't want to face it. Something happened that's putting you in a very bad light, and it's keeping you awake at night. How am I ever going to live this down? I don't want to go back out into the world, So sometimes it can be like maybe you have a major surgery. Again, if you see this next to Pentacles, sometimes it can be the physical body where you're terrified. What if the night before you have to go in for heart surgery? Or, the other thing is maybe your doctor called you and said, oh, we have a diagnosis for you. We need you to come in, and you're terrified. The other thing is that sometimes it can be that depression that you think that nobody loves you. And that's where, when we get into the third card, I'm going to kind of go into that. But again, with it being swords, this can point to a lot of mental illness. And when we get into it in the reverse, sometimes that can be in the real extreme where you have to be very careful. It can be that anguish to the point where, and not to trigger anyone, but just to say it, if you see this next to a court card that represents someone in your life, you may want to seriously talk to them, because this kind of negativity in the mind can sometimes translate to the really bad thought that the world would be better off without me. And there is an epidemic of that going on right now. So you do have to take this card very seriously. Sometimes it can be just agonizing guilt and worry. A lot of times it can be, well, I'm no good, and there's nothing, the world isn't, the world does not benefit from my presence, right? The other thing is that it can be kind of that mental gridlock of the way that someone was raised. And actually, as we transition to the last card, I went with the Slow Tarot by Lacey Bryant. And this is a really beautiful card. It depicts a woman sitting up in bed, and, same thing. She's crying, and you can tell. And she's got 9 different swords, right? And the crazy thing is she's got like kind of a black horse, galloping through it. But the last meaning that I kind of get from this that really plays into the self-loathing and the, feeling like nothing could be good is that a lot of times is that it can be from feeling guilty. Maybe you did something, and this isn't, the Nine of Swords is not a small offense. It's usually a big offense. Like maybe you actually caused somebody harm. Maybe you harmed somebody physically, harmed somebody emotionally. Maybe you did something really underhanded to someone. Maybe you caused somebody else some really agonizing pain. And you feel like it's your fault. A lot of times it can be, just having a really guilty conscience, where, you're focusing on your sins, and goodness knows you do that, at 3 a.m. A lot of times it's, refusing to forgive yourself. It's kind of living in the past, or keeping yourself in the past. What I think is beautiful about that card is a lot of times, a black horse, just like kind of like a black cat, is usually an omen. It's usually an omen, like it usually, the really old meanings of it represents one of the 4 horses of the apocalypse, meaning death and destruction. Like maybe you brought death and destruction to somebody. But the other thing that you can kind of see is that when you think of a dark horse, and we'll get to this in the reverse, is it does have positive meanings as well. But a lot of times it is just, denying that you did your best. A lot of times it's, getting just absolutely paralyzed by remorse. And just to put the psychological hat on for a moment, the purpose of guilt in our brain, is to help us, almost the same way that insulin balances out sugar in your system. It's a balancing. It's a psychological, having a conscience in you is what separates you from being, honestly, the exact definition is it's what separates you from being a psychopath, really. When you have a conscience, when you care about the feelings of others, that is your guilt response. And your guilt response is, again, it's supposed to be balancing. It's supposed to be, it's supposed to temper the way that you treat people. And the reason that it does that is because it's meant to be a lesson. It's meant to help you, to be a barometer where where your sense of caring for others does not become out of whack, does not come out of balance. And I've read several really great psychological articles about this, but the one that stood out to me most is that some of us have an overdeveloped sense of guilt, and that does stem a lot from childhood. A lot of times, if you had parents or caregivers that had addictions, a lot of times you have to be an adult at a very young age, and you are not shown the right way to do things. Because none of us are given the manual. Even if you have the best parents in the world, and this isn't to diss anyone, this isn't to anyone say, oh, well, your family was dysfunctional, you're just wrong, you're just messed up. No, but the purpose of guilt is to help you, balance out the level of care that you give. And when you grew up without the adamant level of care, and no one showed you, there was no responsible adult in your life. Maybe they weren't there, or there were some abandonment issues, or if there was addictions involved, maybe you didn't eat on time, maybe you didn't have, money to pay the rent. And that affects you. The other thing that it does is it throws your guilt response out of whack, because you think that you have to do more, you have to compensate. But the other thing that it does is that it kind of robs you of your childhood. Now, the one thing that I read in these articles that I thought was really interesting is that it talked about how guilt is the twin of resentment. Guilt and resentment are twins. They come in pairs. And what happens is a lot of times, if you have an overactive guilt response, a lot of times it's, because resentment is feeling like you did not do enough. Guilt is, resentment is when you did too much. Resentment is feeling like you do too much and you're being taken advantage of. And that's your psychological way of not being taken advantage of, is saying, okay, I resent the way that I'm being treated. This is not right. I need to balance it in the other direction. But guilt is feeling like you didn't do enough. Now, a lot of times this can play into psychological diseases, like maybe you're a caregiver of someone who has dementia or someone who needs a lot of care. Maybe you have a child who has, you see this a lot. Sometimes it can be very, this is the sign of being psychologically taxed to a breaking point. And so what if you have a child who has autism that needs constant 24-hour care? That is really, really hard. It's very repetitive. You have to be with this child every moment of the day. And you do. It just, you get no sleep, you get no rest, you get no reprieve. And you just, the moment that you feel it, it's one of those things, and again, that's that balance. It's the twins of guilt and resentment. The moment that you have a moment where you kind of snap, you can't take it anymore. It's not healthy for you, but then you feel guilty because, that person needs the care. And it does, it happens. This card is big for caregiver burnout. Parental burnout too, because on the other side of the spectrum, maybe you're a single parent. Maybe you're having a lot of financial troubles, and you feel like you're getting hit from all sides. This is a sign of really, really, really being at the end of that rope. Now, the last thing that also plays into that kind of guilt complex is that quite possibly you did do something based on what you learned, because I also see this card as being like you might have legitimately hurt someone. Your actions may have, just lack of a better word, been cruel. You might have been cruel to someone. You might have legitimately hurt someone, and you might have a legitimate reason for being awake at night. The other thing is that when you start having nightmares and those really weird dreams, when it starts seeping into your subconscious, and I've had plenty of those, it's really encouraged that you journal it, that you look it up in a dictionary, figure out what's going on. But one really good saying, and it was actually from one of the tarot readers here on YouTube. I forget which one. I try to credit when I remember, but She said, hurt people hurt people. And that is really, really true. And it means that you've been hurt in the past. And sometimes when you're raised a certain way, again, when you're raised with lack, sometimes you think, maybe you had a really stern parent, maybe there was a really strict household, and then all of a sudden you start raising your kids or babysitting and start treating the kids that you're watching the same way that you were treated. And then one day you realize, oh my God, I was abusive, I was abused, and then I abused somebody else. It can be the same thing with relationships. If you see this next to cups, next week we're going to be talking about the Ten of Swords, and that talks a lot about betrayal. It talks a lot about being backstabbed. But, here it's more like this is more of that internal. Maybe the other person doesn't know, but maybe you cheated. Maybe you were emotionally unfaithful. Maybe you were, because honestly, just talking to someone else, when you're married and you're flirting with someone else, you can be emotionally unfaithful, and that will keep you up at night. Maybe you treated someone, maybe you were broken up with, maybe someone really did you dirty in a previous relationship, and then you turn around and treated someone else who was completely innocent the same way that you were treated because you didn't know how to transmute the energy. So a lot of times, when you look at the Nine of Swords, it is kind of like that. You staying up at night going, oh my God, But the other thing is that, especially with swords, it can be that you might have you might be on the brink of having your behavior called out, where, that it's happened, and it's kind of like your dirty laundry. But when it comes to a situation or advice, a lot of times it definitely talks about someone who's having nightmares. If you see this in a relationship spread, you could be haunting someone, or someone can be haunting you. It could be guilt over something you did or said, usually something in your own mind. It could be really spiteful behavior that's coming around to bite you. This can also be karma. There's a lot of karma in this. And I don't believe karma is meant to be, like vindictive. But what it is that it's the golden rule. What goes around comes around. If you conducted yourself in a certain way and treated people poorly, you're going to attract people who treat you the same way. And, again, there's checks and balances in life. I do believe that life is about energy. The other thing that I get from this, and especially if you're kind of using this to heal, is that this is a card about living in the past, and you can't live in the past. You can't change the actions that have already occurred. All you can do is look at why they occurred and try to be better. Because the other thing is, and I am a true believer of this, I don't think that you're supposed to do everything right the first way. But, there's what they call the Hippocratic Oath. When you're a doctor, it's first do no harm. First do no harm. Right? When you practice medicine, you're not going to be able to do brain surgery right off, from a book, right? You're going to have to do trial and error. You're going to have to actually operate on someone to do that. But the thing is that, as we go through life, sometimes we had poor role models, and then we go out and we hurt someone else, and then we feel this paralyzing guilt, like, oh my God, what did I do? In those situations, that's a learning experience, right? And I'm just going to point this out. If this is the other thing that I get with this is that over the Halloween reading, we talked about one of the piles. I think it was pile 3 had the Wolfman, and you know how in storybooks, and especially like in Harry Potter and things like that, there are analogies, right? There's analogies like Dementors are said to be depression. And, that's why you eat chocolate after you've had a Dementor attack, right? It's after you've had a bout of depression, right? So the parallel here is that, like the Wolfman is like, when you howl at the moon, maybe you got drunk one night, maybe you got really wasted. Maybe someone in your life has addiction to really heavy drugs, and they did things while they were high. They did things while they were drunk. And later when you become sober, or later when you're really more in your right mind, you're thinking back, oh my God, it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. When you're finally back in your right mind, it's like, what did I do? What harm did I cause? But just to put it out there, you know, when you look at the steps of recovery programs, one of the final steps when you get towards the completion of the 12, and you're never completely done with the program. You have to live it every day, right? You have to live it every day. But when one of the steps in the program is making amends, and that comes later on. I'm honestly not sure which step it is, but I think it's like 10 or 11. It's pretty far down the program line. And what you do is you go back to the people that you've harmed and you ask for their forgiveness. Now, sometimes you don't get it. You don't get it, but that's your way of admitting, okay, you know, I've learned my lesson. I've learned that I'm powerless over this drug, or that I can't, you know, I can't continue to live my life the way that I did. So sometimes just taking that step, and again, you know, if you are feeling paralyzed with guilt, sometimes reading over it, you don't even have to, you know, have an addiction to read over those steps, because those steps are very psychologically beneficial for anyone who wants to recover from guilt. But but again, that can be the kind of when it represents a person, it can be someone that you know is having really bad anxiety attacks, someone who's really paralyzed with worry. It could be someone who's on the brink of eviction, or on the brink of getting, you know, unemployed. Maybe it's someone who's been unemployed for a while and who's really stressed out. It could be someone who's had public censure about something. You know, like you see this with celebrities splashed across the news, you know, the people who don't even want to have, you know, want to face what they've done. If you've had some kind of offense, you know that the other thing is that this can be, you know, guilt over something that someone has done. Um, but a lot of times it can be someone who's just dealing with a really problematic situation. It can be someone who's having really bad nightmares, someone who's not able to sleep, someone who's either riddled with guilt or shame, or obligations to someone that they can't keep, and they're just awake at night worrying about it. You know, the other thing is that it can be the aftermath of some kind of serious fallout, or some kind of, if you see this next to the justice card, it could definitely be somebody awake, you know, worried about custody, worrying about legal battles, or worrying about money. You know, sometimes, again, it can be someone who is, and we'll talk about it more in reverse, but it can be someone who's having more of a mental breakdown, or someone who really is in a lot of anguish, possibly panic attacks, and definitely, you know, insomnia. Um, Now, when we go ahead and look at it in reverse, the first thing that we think of is that when we look at the card in the reverse, usually the first thing we think of is either the energy is dissipating, it's getting, you know, it's leaving, it's becoming lighter, or it's becoming more intense. So to look at the happy side, the Nine of Swords in reverse is actually a nice reprieve. It means that you finally got some sleep, you finally got some rest. Whatever it was that was plaguing your mind, you were able to release it long enough. Because again, when you're in this energy, this is really an unhealthy energy. You can't continue to be a anxiety ball, stress ball, right? But so a lot of times it means the nightmare is over. It means that there's some good news, or maybe you did get the verdict of your health evaluation and you're fine, and you were worrying over nothing. If you were worried about a family member, they finally pulled through. Maybe you did finally get employment, you know, the unemployment check came through, you finally were able to pay the rent, and you're able to breathe a little bit, right? It's an end of the suffering, an end to the stress. It can also be that you took the steps to make amends. You've come to terms with whatever it is that was plaguing you, and you're in a better place with it. Now, I like the vice versa, because when you look in the back, you actually see him looking through the window, and the dawn is coming up. Now, the one thing is, this is a beautiful interpretation, because just like we said, the back of it is considered the card in the reverse. And when you look at it in reverse, it can be either that the sun is finally rising and you're seeing the sun, or it could be that he's looking at the swords still, right? Because we said, you know, the reversal can be either one. It can be either things are getting better or things are getting way worse. So in that card, it's really interesting. You interpret it based on the other cards, and what you feel from the read. But is that person still focused on the swords, even though the sun isn't there, you know, waiting to be viewed? Or is he finally seeing the sun come up? You know, it's really hard to tell because look at that expression. You know, what is he looking at? You know, what's on penny for your thoughts, right? Quarter for your thoughts. Now, the last interpretation is that, you know, again, you know, other than that there's light at the end of the tunnel, that things are going to be better. You know, we talked about before about how it being a wormhole to something better. You know, sometimes it was just a really, really uncomfortable period of time that really put you to your breaking point. And if you're walking through the valley, you're finally getting through, you know. But you know, the other thing is that tomorrow starts afresh, right? Tomorrow's another day, you know. To quote that, but it is. What is it? Anne of Green Gables. I love that story when she says, you know, today is it's like it's you know today is like you know starting afresh. It's all fresh with no mistakes in it. That's what you kind of have to think because again, you can't live in the past. You can't change what you did. You can't change what you did when you were young. You know, it happened. You got to live with it. And the only other thing is that also when you see the card in reverse, take responsibility of it. Take ownership of it. Say, look, I was a dumb kid then. I did not realize, or, you know, I didn't know what the right thing to do was. And I am so sorry if I hurt you. And again, the other person might not accept your attempt at amends, but making that effort is a step that it heals you. It releases you in that process. Now, the last kind of meaning is that if you do kind of look at it in the reverse, and especially with this, we talked about how the dark horse can be an omen of, you know, destruction or, you know, demolition. But the other thing about the black horse is that if you've ever read the book Black Beauty, you know, and that's what it was. This horse was on an island after a shipwreck, and so many people looked at him like he, you know, looked at the horse like he was bad luck, like a black cat. They thought he was, you know, evil because that's what they thought. You know, that there's so many stigmas assigned to certain omens, right? And that's why they even say it. A lot of black kittens don't get adopted because they're seen as like being bad. But if you think of Black Beauty, but the other thing that I think of when I see a black horse, and especially when I see that in reverse with the Nine of Swords, is that you're the dark horse, meaning that you're coming out. You've heard about that in racing, where the dark horse is the one that comes out of the corner of your eye and he wins the race. Right? So the other thing is it's a 9, right? And a 9 is almost to the culmination. So I do think of the dark horse as being the one that you thought that you were in the darkest peril. You thought you hit rock bottom and then you came back out like that dark horse. You were the horse that run the race, right? I also like to read stories or you could watch the movies of like Seabiscuit or Secretariat. Those were dark horse stories. Those are underdog stories, right? So the other thing that I also get is that with the Nine of Swords in reverse, it's a lot of psychological rebuilding, right? Because nobody is innocent in this life. We all have had really horrid mistakes that we've made. And these could be really bad things. You know, you could have abandoned a child. You could have, you know, things like, you know, there might have been decisions, really hard decisions that you had to make that you regret, that keep you up at night. But you can't turn back the time, right? You made the choice at that time and you did it for a reason. So all you can do is live with that reasoning, right? And you can't let it haunt you. You know, you can't let it haunt you. But in the negative, you know, and when it comes to situation and people, you know, it's someone who has a renewed hope for the future. Maybe someone who is getting over an addiction or overcoming guilt. You know, it can be someone who's come out of a nightmare situation. It can be someone who might have been, you know, it could be a victim of domestic abuse who's finally on their way to something better. But, you know, the other thing is that it could be that you upset yourself unnecessarily and then you very quickly, like the dark horse, you very quickly come out of it because, oh my gosh, you know. So again, a lot of times it can be working yourself up for no reason. But, you know, the other thing is that sometimes it can be that you're seeing a counselor or you're doing some kind of meditation or some kind of self-help work to help you get through the anxiety that you feel. Now, in the negative respect, it can be that this anxiety is persisting and getting worse. If you see that, that can be almost far more negative than in the upright. It can be someone who really, really is in a bad mental place than someone in a very dark place. It can be someone who's very preoccupied with morbid things. It could be someone who, and I'll just be real for a minute, it can be someone who is contemplating self-harm. If you see signs of cutting, or if you see signs of self-loathing, if you see someone becoming so recluse or so pulled away. The other thing is that it is definitely more of in the guilt, kind of guilt. The other thing that I see is when it's the 9 in the reverse, it can be extreme grieving. It can be someone who cannot get over a loss, right? And it can be a breakup, it can be a loss of a home, it can be a loss of a child, a loss of a baby. If you see an Empress in reverse, it can be a loss of a child, it can be a loss of a parent or a family member, it can be loss of a job. But it's definitely someone who's in a very, very dark place mentally because they're just beyond reproach, right? The also thing is that if you see this in reverse and you see someone who's not even, it goes beyond nightmare. It goes to the point where the person's not sleeping, but they're not even having nightmares. They're just kind of numb. When someone's being really, really withdrawn, that can be a very, very negative extreme of this card. But the other thing that is in a more health related is it can just be someone who's having chronic sleep problems, someone who's awake all night long, and it's becoming more of a health issue, or somebody who is just struggling with really crippling anxiety. And in that situation, they may definitely want to go ahead and speak to a doctor or a healthcare specialist to see about programs to help with that. But whether in the upright or the reverse, the 9 is a very powerful card. I think, again, there are no bad cards in tarot. I believe that it tells us a lot about a situation, tells a lot about what's going on in someone's mind, and it can be most useful whenever you're trying to discern, the mental and psychological pulse of someone that you're reading for or for yourself. All right, guys, so that concludes the how-to part. So we're going to go ahead and let you choose from the 3 tarot decks. So again, this part of the reading is where you choose your deck. The first deck is the Rider-Waite-Smith, and with it we have a beautiful sunstone. The second deck is the Vice Versa Tarot, and we have a gorgeous Dalmatian Jasper. This was tumbled by my friend, so it's a very lucky stone. It's always I always pair it with this deck because it just goes so nicely. The third deck is the Slow Tarot by Lacey, Bryant, and with it we have a beautiful bloodstone, which is actually very therapeutic. Bloodstones are really about dispelling negative energy, so I always thought that was positive for that deck. And we're going to be clarifying with the Answer is Simple Oracle cards by Sonia, Choquette, and with it we have a beautiful fire agate. Sorry, there's like a little fly flying around, sorry. But if you need more time, please pause the video. If you like the art, the timestamp, or whatever you feel in your jellies. And again, if you need more time, please pause the video, and I'll see you in a minute. All right, we're back. So we're going to go ahead and start with the first deck, the Rider-Waite-Smith. So deck number 1, how does the 9 of Swords manifest in your life? And again, I always encourage, sometimes later, if you watch a weekly energy card reading, or if you watch the reading for another channel, if there seems to be a card that's really sticking out to you or seems to be like the prominent energy, sometimes it's good to watch the How to Tarot because it really kind of gives us a, clarification on what the manifestation of how this shows. So, but again, take what resonates and leave the rest. But all right, so 9 of Swords, deck number 1. Okay, I'm really drawn to bring all 3 here. Wow, I'm definitely getting a relationship vibe here, guys. Okay, current energy, or more present energy. Aha! Makes sense. Future energy, please. There we go. Wow. Oh, gosh, guys. We got Chariot popping out. Okay, so let's go ahead and get your Oracle card. Oh, well, this is kind of cool. All right, we got two popping out together, so we're gonna go ahead and read both. But wow, guys, yeah, I definitely get an anxiety here. I do get the sense that it could be either way, but I do get the sense what you got is you got the Knight of Wands, and he's running this way. He's kind of galloping opposite direction, and underneath it we've got two major arcana. You've got the Lovers, and you got the World. So I think what happened was you felt a really, really soul connection to someone. This was a younger person, not young, not like child young, but like early 20s, maybe 30s. But it was a very free spirited person. If you're a woman watching this, you definitely, the Knight of Wands. We had a tarot on him. Feel free to watch it if you want. But he's definitely an adventurer, and he's not a bad guy, but he's a freedom loving person, right? And he does embody the the fire signs like Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius, and none of those signs like to be tied down. They're very prideful, and they value their freedom more than anything. But the Knight of Wands definitely gets a reputation of being a player. He's one of the you notice his horse, he's got two hooves on the ground and two hooves reared up. So he's always ready to go on to the next conquest. But what I'm sensing here is that I'm seeing you got the Lovers. You got the Lovers, which means both. It means both a choice, and it means also a soul connection to someone, because you see that angel, and we talked about this being like walking through the valley. Oh my gosh, I swear to you, in the intro I talked about the song by Jenny Owings. It's Jenny, I think it's Genny or Ginny Owens, like Owens. And that song I had not listened to forever. She's a Christian singer, and it's funny. I was raised Lutheran, but her style of music became very mainstream. It was on a soundtrack of a WB show. It was on the soundtrack, I think, of Roswell, like the original Roswell, and I love that show. I have a poster from that show. But you know, but the lyrics of that song really speak to me. If you get a chance to, and it is, I would walk through the valley if you asked me to. And it's her talking to God, and you see Adam and Eve, they're talking to God. I think in the past you really felt a soul connection to someone. You felt soul connection to someone, but this person may not have. Person may have been in and out of your life. They may have been not wanting a solid commitment at the time that you met them. You felt like they were really the one. You felt like they were the one. And the thing is with the World, and especially you see the four signs, right? The four signs there, the four corners. You've got the water bearer, which is Aquarius, the eagle, which is the higher evolution of Scorpio. Then you got Leo the lion, and you got Taurus the bull. But what it is it's completion of a cycle. It's completion of a cycle. And what I'm totally getting from this is that you were meant to meet this person, right? You were meant to meet this person. And the other thing that I'm kind of getting, and I hate to say it, trigger warning, guys, I don't mean to upset anybody. It's not like that. It's just, believe me, you're not alone. I always feel like it's so trite when readers are just like, well, you should go after someone who treats you better. And you're like, yes, I know that. But I do believe in soul contracts with people. I do believe that you will fall head over heels in love with someone that you believe is meant to be in your life. And that's what I'm seeing here. This person, from all outward appearances, people are like, well, you should know better. You shouldn't go out with players. I don't wake up you don't wake up in the morning and say, hey, let me go get my heart broken, right? And I get angry at readers that get so blasé about that, because I completely understand. I know. But the thing I'm getting is that you were meant to have this connection. You were meant to have this connection. And it's funny. It's almost like you're looking back at it going, why didn't I just avoid it? Why didn't, the way that all the tarot readers tell me, why didn't I just avoid it? No, honey, you didn't, or if you're a guy watching this, this could totally be a feminine's energy too. The other thing is that if this is a feminine energy. She's a hot young thing, you know. Women are not innocent in this. You know, a woman can definitely be in the Knight. Actually, I really feel like women in the Knight of Wands energy can be a little bit more dangerous than men can. I will say this, you know, as much as people can lie, you know, the Knight of Wands is really not so much the liar type. He is the schmoozing type. What it is I think the other thing is what they do is they get, you know how we talked in the if you caught the how-to part, we talked about how it's almost like the morning after, you know, the moon was full and I was drunk and I didn't know what I was doing, but then the next day you think, oh God, you know, why did I do that? And what it is the Knight of Wands gets you high off energy. They get you high off energy, and you could be dealing with a man or a woman in this energy. And I'll tell you, young 20-year-old, you know, you're 20 something woman, you know, with the eyelashes, long hair, you know, the hips, you know, she can totally get you high off that energy, you know. So if you're a man watching this, don't feel like we're not you know, ruling you out. But if this is a guy, you know, it being a knight, you know, in the traditional Rider Waite Smith, it's more of a knight's energy, more of a guy. But you were definitely, the thing is, you were meant to make a choice. And the other thing with the Lovers is you see how Eve is looking up at the angel, like, what do I do? And Adam is looking over at her, like, you know, and he's got that flaming tree behind him, right? He's all ablaze. He's all ablaze. But this, I also get the sense that because this is past energy, you had to make a really tough choice. And I really think that it probably broke your heart to do it. Probably broke your heart to do it. The other thing is that I just see that this person was running in an opposite direction than you. They were not, you know, the other thing is that, and believe me, I empathize so much with this pile because, you know, you want someone who is there for you. You can't, you know, when you think about a lifelong relationship, you know, someone that you would exchange rings with and say, I do too, you know, that can't be someone who's just serving their own interest. It has to be someone who's really there for you, someone reliable. And that's the problem with the Knight of Wands, is he's unfortunately not a reliable person. It doesn't make him a bad person. It just, he's got missions to go on, right? And you can tell it's all about, you know, the Wands are energetic and they're spiritual. And I think what it was is that you really needed that energy in your life at the time that they came in. So I don't think it was almost like meant to happen. You know, this person was meant to be something big to you. But the other thing that I kind of get is that the root, because I always look at it as root, stem, and bloom, I think you were meant to grow from this experience. I think you were, the other thing is the fixed signs are the get it done signs. They bring things, they bring situations to a fruition. And the World is the last card of the Major Arcana. It's the last card. It's the culmination of a cycle, and the 9 is one less than the 10. So I think what it is that I think you really are worried about some kind of past relationship. You either thought, God, why didn't I avoid this completely, or why did I fall so hard? And I think it was meant to, I think this anguish was meant to, you know, maybe you said some things, or maybe you did some things that you might regret. You know, if this is your energy, maybe you met someone who was really like soulmate energy, really going to be your world, but you were just in such a restless energy that, hey, look, there's a squirrel, let me go. And you totally ran away, ran away from this beautiful, beautiful thing. And what I see now is that, you know, current energy is you've got these 6 of Swords. And we how to tarot on the 6 of Swords, that's, you know, that's a real neutral energy. It's feeling kind of numb. It's you sitting in the boat and being rowed to someplace better. Now, one way that I can read it is maybe you got real impulsive with someone and it might have resulted in a child. And now it's you and that child in the boat, right? You know, all the spark of excitement is gone, and the cold real world of reality is setting in, and it's plaguing you. It's on your mind. Maybe you are worried about money. Maybe you have to take care of this child by yourself now, you know, because you got into it with someone who wasn't reliable. Now, the other thing that I can read from this is maybe if it doesn't involve a child at all, if it's just you, maybe you really did have your heart kind of broken. You really thought this person, because again, you get high off the energy, you get high, and being in love gives you those endorphins. It gives you that hit to the brain. And right now it's almost like, because these are two sixes, 6 6, right? And you want peace, right? You don't want all these ups and downs. You're staying on the level, but inside it just makes you feel real miserable. You're just like, okay, will I ever be happy again? I do kind of I get a little bit more of a depression from this. The other thing that I kind of get is that maybe you felt like this was your only chance at love, or that you'll never find happiness again, because this was just so glorious, and how can that ever happen again? Now, the future, it looks very bright, but what it is that, this kind of depression, and with this water, because what we have is we have a lot of water and swords. And as we go forward, you have the moon, and you have the Page of Cups. You have the Page of Cups. So quite honestly, guys, you might be, in the future, you might be feeling a little lost. If this does involve a child, it could be a little water baby. Maybe you have a little Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces little one. And I do get the sense that they're not baby. Probably like age 3 to 7. But moving forward, you do feel a little lost in your own energy. The other thing that I get is with this is that you're taking, again, we talked in the Six of Swords about how you're not looking back, right? You're not looking back, but it is hard. This energy is really hard. It's, when you see how much light, you see how much sunlight is in this. And we talk about how the moon does not glow of its own accord. It reflects the sun. So wow, guys, I'm feeling this right in the center of my chest. I'm so sorry. God, I feel you. Oh, that hurts. What I'm hearing in my head is that it's like, I'm hearing that song, "Ain't no sunshine when he is gone," he or she. There's no sun when she's away. And the thing with the moon is that the moon reflects the sun's light. So the page is a learner, right? It's like that first little baby step in the next direction towards trying to be happy. But you do still feel really lost. You feel really lost in your base desires. There's a lot of parallel here. Like with the 6, Adam and Eve, right? Sun and the moon, and the 2 dogs, the domesticated dog and the primal wolf. I would highly encourage watching the How to Tarot on the Moon, because this is a very complex card. You see 2 towers, but what I'm getting is that you are going to feel very deep in your emotions. This is going to take some healing. And the thing is that with the Page of Cups, if this is just you and it does not involve a child, I think it's just going to be slow healing. I think you're taking the steps to feel better. I think you are going to try, but you are going to be, this is going to be a long journey for you. And you're going to feel kind of gray. You're going to feel kind of gray for a while. And I'm so sorry, because I've been there. I have so been there in my life. I had a 8-year relationship end really badly and really suddenly, and I was completely shocked. I was really stabbed, and I was paralyzed like this. And unfortunately, it does take about half the length of a relationship. So if it's 8 years relationship, it takes about 4 years to actually recover, which seems like the dirge, right? It's like, oh God, am I gonna just suffer? Am I gonna be in this mental anguish forever? You won't. And the Page of Cups it's such, look at the expression in his face. It's such a gentle energy. The other thing is that, what my mom always says, my parents were divorced for many years, and I actually got 2 sets of step parents out of it, and I'm so blessed. I'm so blessed. My stepmom is an angel. My stepdad is the sweetest. And it's like, the other thing is that my mom always looks at me and my sister and says, you guys are the biggest blessing in my life. And my dad, my dad is passed, but he said the same thing. You guys were always the blessing. So maybe you are feeling kind of blue, and maybe your little one is cheering you up. The other thing that I kind of get is that this Page of Cups, I think, is tying into this. So let's go ahead and read your oracle cards, because I do think you're going to feel a little lost. You're going to feel a little emotionally adrift. That's what I'm getting, emotionally adrift. And you're it's like you're looking up at the moon, and you're just looking at it as being this mirror of what you once had, like a hollow reflection of all the glory that is no longer yours. And that's such, please don't believe that. Please don't believe that. That is your mind's playing tricks on you. Is that a song? Your mind's playing tricks on you. Don't let your mind play tricks on you, because the moon is that real primal energy. Yes, you're grieving. Yes, you're missing something. But, and I'm sorry, I'm going to get trite for just a minute. What is that saying? If something is meant to be in your life, it'll be there. It'll be there. It's not going to be this flighty ass, pardon my French, jumping out of your life crap. If someone's really meant to be there for you, they'll be there for you. And if this person doesn't grow up or doesn't step up, maybe you got the best thing that you could from them, whether that be a child or the emotional opportunity to grow. But what we have is we've got 47 and we got 50. And let's go ahead and read 47. I'm just going to read this real quick, because I feel like the book is so positive, and that's why I brought these cards out. But decide the outcome. There you go, guys. Maybe you are undecided. The greatest expression of spirit is to fully embrace your creative power and use it. The ego denies that you have any, and falls into the trap of feeling like a victim. This leaves you with a sense of being hopelessly at the mercy of fate and without a choice. The spirit, on the other hand, not only knows that it's a divine creator, it actively directs your creative power every day towards satisfying goals. The simplest way to support this process is to decide the outcome of your intentions before you begin. For example, rather than hoping that you'll get a new job, decide that you'll have one and it will be delightfully satisfying to you. Instead of praying that romance will find you, decide that you'll love and be loved fully starting today. Plan your future based on your decisions rather than dreading it based on your fears. Visualize how your goals will manifest. Expect good things to come and know that they're on their way. Leave hope and wishful thinking out of it. These two are manipulations of the ego to keep you doubting that you can anticipate success. As a creative and holy being, intend what you want and expect it now. And oh my gosh, guys, it talked about what it was, fears. The moon can represent fears. And here it's like you're deciding. Look, and there's a cup there, guys. Look. And it's that simple, right? And I know it's simple, but it's not easy. There's a difference. It's simple, but it's not easy. So what it is the power is really with you. The power is with you. Now, I love this too, because it says decorate. And if you've been watching my Instagram, I'm not normally like a real holidays person, but I'm starting to get into like early decorating, and I'm finding it very emotionally not therapeutic. But here we go. The spirit is a sensitive light body and is influenced by the environment it finds itself in. Dreary, dark, messy, cluttered, unclean surroundings send the spirit out the door and invite the goblins and trolls of negativity to move in and camp out in the corners. It's time to set this right. Open the blinds, clear the decks, paint the walls, change the light bulbs, and decorate the atmosphere where you live. Make your environment a proper home for your spirit. Your spirit must dwell in a cheerful and festive place. Fill it with color and live plants, fresh flowers, clean windows, and bright light. Your spirit is a holy guest in your body and must be treated as royalty. You wouldn't disrespect visitors with an unwelcoming environment or expect them to dwell in your mess, and you shouldn't disrespect your spirit by giving it less than the tranquil setting it deserves either. Take the time to create a festive and bright atmosphere for your spirit. Be happy to welcome it home. Give it the proper surroundings and put out the best you have to receive it. So wow, guys, maybe to help get you out of your blues is to say, okay, it's that, again, I'm getting a small little emotional step. And maybe, again, maybe it could be decluttering. I would highly suggest maybe a little bit of feng shui, looking at the corners of your room and deciding how to bring more positive chi energy in. There's a lot of really great books out there that talk about that. The other thing is that I would also say that, if you're in a decorating spirit, we are coming up on the holidays, if that makes you feel good, go ahead and be like a little kid with it. You know what I'm getting is whatever makes you feel good, whatever makes you feel creative, whatever, gets you out of your blues, that would be a really, really good energy. But wow, guys, that was really powerful, and I wish you the best. I think this will get better, and please don't be hard on yourself. You didn't do anything wrong. All right, so second deck, we've got the Vice Versa Tarot, and let's go ahead and see, how does the Nine of Swords manifest in your life? Okay, current energy, please. Oh, wow. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and take these, and then future energy. Let's go ahead and get your oracle card. Okay, wow, guys. Wow. I am getting definitely more of a despair kind of energy. What I'm kind of getting is I'm getting in the past. In the past, you were off to a very good start. We've got the Knight of Pentacles and we've got the Star. I think that I think you've been working really hard. I do get a sense that this is work related, money related. You're earning good money and you're on a good track. And in the past, you were off to a great start. You had so much hope and hope in the future. And you were really ready to work hard. You were plotting steps towards your future. And I think you were working hard at work. You were, possibly this could have been a new position at work. But in the past, you were definitely... it's like you were excited. You were excited for the future, but you were ready to put in the work. Like you didn't need it to happen overnight, but you wanted to feel slow and steady growth. Now, the current energy, what I'm seeing is that we've got the Five of Pentacles, we've got the Two of Cups, and then we've got the Eight of Cups, and then we've got a Nine. So, wow, guys. The other thing with the star is that it can be relationship related. It can be someone that you look at, like, is your star. I know it sounds funny, but if you've ever watched the Disney movie The Princess and the Frog, and what's the name of the character who's the little firefly, and he's always singing the song about being in love with the North Star. Angeline, I forget her name, but it's almost like it's quite possible that you might have started off on a path to earn more money to impress someone or for love. But either way, I do get the sense that it was kind of dual purpose. Either you had your eye on someone that you really looked at as being your future, or you just had a lot of hope for the future because you got a new position and you were making good money and you were slowly accumulating fiscal financial security, and you were feeling strong and steady. But what I get now is that the Five of Pentacles is feeling impoverished, and then you've got the Two of Cups, and then you've got the Eight of Cups. I really get the sense that either you've something has taking you, like you had a good start, you were on a mission to make money, and for whatever reason you either feel like you failed your mission or that you're not making money fast enough, right? It could be that I'll be honest that if you were trying to impress someone, if you're a guy watching this, maybe you were trying to impress someone with the money or the stature that you had, and you really, again, you had all this hope. Because the other thing that I'm getting is you see the star in the background. Oh my gosh, guys, there's a star in the background of both the star and the lover, the Two of Cups. The Two of Cups. You really, you wanted to earn enough money to support or take care of someone. If you're a woman watching this, you just had a lot of hope in the future that you were going to be okay. I think in the past you were really starting off on a solid foot, and you were ready to be, financially stable. And then something happened. The only thing I can read this as is that either the person that you had your eye on found someone else and walked away from you, and it made you feel left out in the cold. It's like, hey, because the other thing is that the Knight of Pentacles is the slowest moving knight. He's not quick. And sometimes if somebody, the other thing is that this is more of a Taurus energy, and the water bearer, the star, is more of an Aquarius energy. So maybe someone found someone else while you were trying, and it's keeping you awake at night. Like, okay, why didn't I make a move sooner? Or, why did this person leave me? Now, the other thing that I kind of get is that possibly you had your eye on somebody, but because, again, you see all four hooves on the ground, he's not moving. The thing about the Knight of Pentacles is he is a very reliable character. He always gets where he's going, but his missions can last for years, right? If you're in love with someone, you might need to be communicative, and that might be what's on your mind. Why didn't I come out and tell this person, that it was going to take a while for me to earn this money? Or, maybe you have to go on a mission away from home. That's one other thing I can kind of get here, is that maybe you went out to earn the money, and when you came back, the person wasn't available anymore. And maybe because swords is communication, but we've got all four elements in this read. But one other way I can read it is that maybe you became solely focused on making that money. And what you did is, because I always look at it as the root, the stem, and the bloom. So the outcome was the Eight of Cups, and then the Nine of Swords. Maybe you felt like, okay, I'm not earning this money fast enough, or you still felt poor. Right? And this can be a mindset, right? It doesn't have to necessarily be true. You're on a mission, but maybe you were paying off debts, or maybe you just felt like, because again, the knight is not a king. He's not a king or a queen. He's still the younger version of the suit. So possibly what happened is that maybe you felt like, okay, I'm going to be a while. Let me walk away from any emotional attachments. Let me walk away. And the other thing is that this is a Two of Cups. This is feeling a real emotional connection to someone. And look at that. That star is above, guys. That star is above. I think you're agonizing over walking away from someone. You're walking away from a really strong attachment, but I'm getting the sense that you weren't ready. You weren't financially ready, or you felt like you still had to build yourself. It's almost like you didn't feel like you were good enough, or that you wouldn't be able to support the person that that you wanted to give this person everything. Because look at that, you've got the two snakes intertwined. Look at that, guys. You felt a real you felt a real stellar connection. You met someone that you felt like you could have the same future with. But what I'm almost getting is like you started out on this path before you met the person, and then you met the person and you realized, well, I'm still in Five of Pentacles territory. I haven't completed my mission yet. It's going to take me a little while to get out of this whatever it is. Again, maybe you're paying off bills, maybe you just, and the other thing is that the Knight is a very practical dude. You know, he's going to be real in his, the other thing is he's real in his head. He's practical in his head. So I think you might have walked away from somebody, and it's because you felt like you weren't good enough. In your head, you felt like this pauper. In your head you felt like this pauper, even though in the real world you're the Knight, you know. But I think it broke your heart to make that decision, but you felt like it was the right thing, and now it's haunting you. You're worried that you made the wrong decision, that you made the wrong choice, but you did it for financial reasons. The other thing is that maybe you were trying to spare this person from something. Maybe you were trying to spare this person from poverty, or trying to spare them from some kind of lack. So you'd rather walk away, because look at how beat up these poor cups are. They're all dented. You know? The cups in their hands aren't, but the cups that are, it's almost like you set the two cups down. Maybe you, the other thing I kind of get from this is maybe that you had previous relationships that ended badly, and you jumped to the conclusion that this one, you know, this one would end the same way. And it has something to do with money. It has something to do with money or security, financial security. But the future, we've got the Page of Wands in reverse, and we got Temperance. So what that tells me is that there is no balance in your head. There's no balance. You want to make this right. You want to balance this. And look, guys, silver and gold, and it's two cups. It's two cups. Oh gosh. The other thing is that it's the ambivalent angel. I think part of your anxiety is I'm hearing praying to God. You're praying to God that this will work out. You're praying to God that this will work out, but you feel like that angel's got its back to you. Like the angel that would balance out these two cups, bring these two cups back together. It's almost like she's not listening to you. You think that they're not listening, or it's not going to happen. The other thing that we've got here is we've got the Lion, and we've got I'm not sure if that's supposed to be the bird from Scorpio, but the other thing that I kind of get here is that in the background of this card in the reverse is that you see the same stand that the Hangman is supposed to hang on, but it's empty, which means that it's kind of like Elvis has left the building. Sorry to say it like that. The Hangman is about seeing something. It's about sacrifice. It's about staying in an uncomfortable position because you see the spiritual value in it. And here, the Hangman is absent. He's omitted. He's untied himself, and he's left. And the reason that he did that is because there's no other reason for him to hang around, right? You know, he doesn't need to stay there hanging anymore because he got up and left. The other thing is with Leo, I'm sensing a lot of pride. And with the Page of Wands in reverse, and you also see a phoenix. You see a phoenix there. I think you're in paralysis. I think the universe can balance out this mistake if you take action. And it would be a small action. right? Like the Page of Wands is a small action. And oh my God, guys, look at the synchronicities. There are synchronicities all over this freaking read. Look at the two cloaks. It looks like the same freaking person. I'm sorry, this is crazy. We've got two stars. We've got two jugs. We've got gold and silver, which is fire and water. And if this is a Scorpio and that's a Leo, that's fire and water. Maybe you're a Leo dealing with a Scorpio, or vice versa, or if your moons are in these elements. But what it is you can resurrect yourself. You can resurrect yourself if you come back. The other thing is that you walked away. If you walked away, you can walk back. But that's the action. That's going to be the actions that's needed. And you see the stars in the background. You see the stars in the background. The other thing is that, gosh, guys, you know what I'm hearing? The universe hears you. You pray at night. Do you pray at night? Like late at night, you worry about this. You think that this love is lost. And you pray for a solution. You pray for the universe to make it right. But the universe is telling you, yes, we can make it right, but you got to take action. We can't just miraculously swoop in and do it on your behalf. It's almost a little bit of a lesson. The other thing is you got to learn self-worth. Self-worth, like the page of Wands. Do you think this? Look at this guy. He's a page. Oh my God, he's a page. But when you look at the back, that's all it takes is knowing that you're good enough. And the other thing is, if you look at it, he's taking one step. It's just one step in that direction. And it's almost like, and we've got stars in all three of these cards, guys. You just got to know. You got to know that if you take that one step, the universe can back you up. And I think this can flip. But the other thing is that, the other thing I'm getting is that you can't be in a hanged man state, because that's what you're doing. You think that stagnating is the answer. Stagnation's not the answer. The other thing is the Leo is the get it done card. It's the fixed fire energy. You know, you don't want to stagnate, because that's not going to do anything. That's not going to balance these energies. The other thing that I kind of get is that it's almost like, again, water and fire, that's a balance of your emotion and your ego as well, if this is just your energy. But the Oracle card and the advice that you got is you are safe. And I love this card. It's number 48, which boils down to 12, which is the single number 3 if you are into numerology. But card number 48, and I've gotten this card before. It's so beautiful. I'm just going to read it because the book describes it best. But the ego torments you with fears of danger and keeps your attention on patrolling the borders of your life, expecting an ambush at any minute. This is stressful and frightening and allows you no room to relax. The spirit, on the other hand, surrounds you in a powerful and protective shield of light, alerting you to real danger far before it presents itself, and moving you gracefully away before danger shows up. Therefore, you can relax your fears and allow your attention to rest. Breathe in deeply and recognize how much fear you carry. As you exhale, send the anxiety out of your body and replace it with a second inhalation of protective, loving light. You are safe. Danger has passed. There's no one out to get you. Most of all, don't fear taking charge of your life. Just as there's no one ready to pounce, there's no one who's necessarily going to save you either. Not anyone outside of you anyway. The safety you seek, however, is available to you. It can be found in your spirit. It lies in your heart and is watching over you at all times. Your spirit is formidable and can be counted on to protect you, so you needn't fear a thing. Don't allow your ego to steal away another moment's peace. You are safe. Wow, guys, I feel like this ties everything together. The other thing is that this is about anxiety, right? And this is about, feeling like it talked about how you're safe. You might feel like something is going to come to get you, like you'll be that you'll be thrown out in the snow, right? If you don't, so you don't risk anything. The other thing is, it said that, I love the way it said that, no one is out to get you, but, there's also no one there to save you either. Like, the angel's not going to pop out and solve all your problems. Unfortunately, it talked about spirit, having spirit. And what's the spirit of the phoenix? That's also a scorpionic symbol, right? Your spirit can save you. Just know that you can call on it. You can take the action yourself. The other thing is, I do think that you would benefit from meditation. Just like it talked about breathing out negative energies and breathing in positive, safe vibes. That I do also think that with the star, the other thing is, it talked about ego and getting in the way, and the Leo, the lion, is about ego, right? But again, this is not a situation for the hangman. You're not supposed to sit back and wait for things to happen. You're refusing to take action. You're stagnating, and it's keeping you in that anxiety state. So I do think that it, just like it said, you're safe. You can be your own hero. Just, trust your spirit, kind of tone down the ego and trust your spirit and let that kind of shine. And the other thing is that the Page of Wands is kind of joyfully impulsive. Like, he's the guy who, it's like being a kid again, right? It's, gosh, guys, I feel like you probably haven't known a whole lot of safety in your life, and I'm sorry for that. It's almost like you've learned that from a young age you must always have security, and it's almost like you have to earn it yourself. I do think that you might have grown up in a home environment that didn't really shelter you too much. But it is just letting you know that those impulsive feelings that you have, the freedom that you want, that's okay to feel. That is okay to feel. That's actually what turns the gears and gets things going. But if you felt like you're not enough, it's telling you that it wants to balance things. It wants to make everything right, but it is going to require action on your part. But you're safe. You're safe. If whatever makes you feel free, do it. Do it, and try not to let your ego get in the way, because you are protected. But wow, guys, oh my gosh, that was intense. I knew this was gonna be a real powerful card. Oh my god, I can't even. And next week is gonna be another doozy. But all right. So moving on, we've got the last deck. We've got the Slow Tarot by Lacey, Bryant, and I've always been really drawn to this card. It's a really, she did such a fantastic job. And when I do the video for that talks about the tarot deck collection, I'll go into more details. But Lacey Bryant is a completely wonderful. She created this deck. She's an actual painter, an artist from California. And she created this deck. They're actual paintings. All of the cards are actual paintings that she created over 8 years. And she started this deck as a Kickstarter. And if you follow her over on Instagram or on Facebook, actually, she posts pictures of her daily paintings, and she's very talented, very talented. But let's go ahead and see. Okay, Nine of Swords. What's your past energy? Ooh. Oh, wow. All right. Thanks. Whoa. Oh my gosh, guys. Future energy. Okay. And we got Hierophant popping up. Okay, you got a little bit of status quo going on, guys. Oh, you have to adhere to the opinions of others. All right, what's our oracle? Oh, wow. Oh, this is so beautiful, guys. Okay, the imagery is a little bit tough because, again, we're going to be talking the middle card we're going to be talking about next week. So if if you're watching this once we've posted, please feel free to check out. Again, the How to Tarots are great to check out when there's a card that's a heavy hitter that you really need more information about. But in your past, you got the Four of Swords, and this is great. This was in the How to Tarot for the Four of Swords. It's such a gorgeous image. And the Page of Wands. And our Page of Wands is becoming our common denominator. But the Four of Swords is about taking a break, right? It is a little bit about being in the middle of the demolition of something. It is about new growth, but it is almost like you need a reprieve, right? You need a break. You need to get away a little bit. And what I'm kind of getting here is that we've got the Page of Wands coming out at an angle. It's like coming out as a block. So what I'm kind of getting, guys, is that I'm kind of reading this one of a few ways, which is my classic line, sorry. This could involve a child. It could involve a fire sign child. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a young child, like in the picture it does look like someone who's like 12, but it could be someone who is a male or female, who acts like they're 12. And it can be a fire sign child, like Leo, Sagittarius, or Aries, but it's a very outgoing, it's almost like a really lively child. Now, the one thing that I kind of read from it is, if you're a man or a woman watching this, it could be that you might have been having some troubles with a child. Again, with the Page of Wands, they're very outgoing, but they're also a little impulsive, like to the point where sometimes, and especially if this was in the reverse, and because this is coming up as a block, it's almost like you can't get any rest. It's almost like you really need a break, but every single time you turn around, this child is kind of stirring up stuff. And it's not in a bad way, because it's not in the reverse. I don't think that this child's doing anything malicious, but I do think that they're kind of being themselves. But the thing is that they, again, it's almost like they need constant attention. They're constantly into things, right? Like here, you see the look on their face. He's camping and he's doing a great job, but it's almost like, it's funny. My mom once told me a story about, we were, in the military growing up, and, we would move from base to base, and one of our neighbors one time, she had a 3-year-old little boy, and I swear, I don't remember his sun sign, and it can be somewhere else in the chart too. It doesn't necessarily have to be the sun, but every single time she turned around, the child was a boy and he was 3 years old. And she remember one time she was watching him, but like she turned her back for like 2 minutes and he was sitting on top of the china cabinet. It was like that child who was just constant attention, to the point where it was just exhausting. It was exhausting. It was almost like, oh my gosh, this kid is just into this and into that and into this and into that. And it's not a bad thing. It isn't that you don't love your child. It's just they're driving you insane. They're driving you insane. It's like, can you sit down and be still for 3 seconds? Because it's like, the other thing is with this Four of Swords, it's like you desperately need a break. You're walking on rubble. Now, the other way that I kind of read this is that because it looks like broken down buildings, maybe you did just have kind of a tower moment. Maybe you did just have something really kind of crazy happen. Like maybe you moved or changed jobs, or, and I'm sorry to say it, maybe we've, the economic climate that we're in with the pandemic in the world, it could be, job related, family related, maybe you got a lot going on and you're stressed out and you're crazy and you need a break. And and again, with this having new growth in it, you're trying to get your bearings, right? The other thing is that the Four of Swords is about stability. You're just trying to get your bearings. But I do kind of get the sense that possibly, if this is, the other thing is with it involving swords and Nine of Swords, and then we're going to get into this in a minute, Ten of Swords, there's a lot of birds in these two cards. And I just have to throw it out there because it's a possibility. Anytime you have swords, that does speak a lot of justice, and it can speak of a King of Swords or a Queen of Swords. They're not in this spread, but sometimes this can relate to some kind of custody of a child, where the other thing about the Four of Swords, it's like taking a reprieve, taking a break. We talked about that. Sometimes if it's a legal situation, maybe you have to go to court regarding custody or child support or something like that. And it's almost like you have to reserve your your resources. You have to kind of breathe a little bit before you go in. It's like boxing. You have to go to your corner and kind of rest a little bit before you go into the next round. And but what I'm seeing here is that, birds represent like tweets, like communication. It can be text messages, and definitely with swords. Um, the other thing I kind of get from this is maybe in the past, maybe, you were trying to take a break, but you were still worried. It's like you need to, because we talked about it in the Four of Swords. Please feel free to check out that How to Tarot if you want more clarification. But it's almost like saying, okay, my problems will be there when I get back. If I am waiting for some kind of court decision, or I have to talk to my ex-husband or ex-wife next week, and it's going to be, it's going to be bloody, let me breathe now. While I have a moment to get myself collected, let me take advantage of that. Let me not worry. But this child's still on your mind. Either that, or you want to take some kind of impulsive action, but you're holding yourself back, because that's the other thing about all this. This is mental. This is worry, 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 worry. And the thing is that and believe me, I know I'm the queen of worry. Anytime you worry, maybe those little birds are thoughts, right? And you're trying to keep the thoughts at bay, right? There's nothing I can do right now. Why am I going to? But what do? The moment you say, oh, there's nothing I can do right now, let me try to let me get my head on the hamster wheel of, futility, of thinking about what the possible solution might be to this. And, because I want to do something, right? I want to take action. Let me be ready. Let me be ready. The other thing that I'm also get from this is maybe you felt like this situation was not as bad as you thought it was. That's one other thing I kind of get from this. Maybe you were in some kind of situation. Also, it looks like it might be some kind of either legal or verbal spat with someone. And maybe you thought that it was in the bag. Maybe you thought, okay, I need a break from this. And it could very well involve a child. But you said, okay, I need a break from this. The other thing is that maybe, again, you thought it was in a good place. And I feel like I'm getting a strong sense that it's involving kind of an impulsive child. But you thought, okay, we're in a good place. Everything's going to be all right. I can breathe for a minute, Then, hello, present energy. And I don't want you to be afraid, because energy can change from moment to moment, and there are no bad cards in tarot. And we're going to be talking this card in this deck in particularly, the Ten of Swords, is a very macabre card. There is literally blood. But please do not let that make you afraid. We're going to be talking about the 10 next week. This card is, I'm not going to be using the Slow Tarot and the How to Tarot for the 10. But the Nine of Swords, I almost think that this is probably more in your head than anything, but it could potentially be a real situation. And what I'm seeing is that if this is related to some kind of custody, you might be terrified. And again, with the dark horse, you might be terrified that something is going to come out from your peripheral vision. It's going to, the dark horse, is the underdog. It's the one that comes out of nowhere and comes to get you, right? You might think that something is going to come out of the nooks and crannies and absolutely annihilate you. The other thing that I kind of get with this is that in the past there were a few birds there, and it's almost like you couldn't see them because of the tent, right? Because you were taking a break. And then now there is no shelter. You're seeing all of the birds. And it's like, and then boom, 10 swords in the back. So just to put it out there, and I do not want you to be afraid, but what it is that it could be potentially that you maybe you were getting a few text messages, maybe you were being warned, right? There were a few shots across the bow. Okay, there might be something deeper going on here. Things are not under control. Because we talked about in the Four of Swords too. It's like, hey, come back. There's something that we need to deal with here. But you needed a break. I do think that you needed a break. Again, it's like the little 3-year-old being on top of the china cabinet. It's like, can you sit your ass down? It's not you being a cruel parent. It's just you being exhausted. But then all of a sudden, you got a few warning texts, and then boom, dark horse, out of the blue, something blew up. and it really got you. It really emotionally stabbed you. And then it's like all these birds circling around like, hey, I told you, you know, we were a few birds at first, now we're 12 birds in your kitchen, like, you know. So I do think that your worry might be justified. There might have been a situation that you thought was handled, and you might have been kind of putting off. You know how when you hit the snooze button, you know, when your computer says, "Hey, we need to update," and you hit snooze. Maybe you were hitting a snooze on, or you thought, "Okay, I'll get to that when I can," and it totally, you know, overnight becomes a really ugly situation. And it could be that the child kind of does something to really get you. And I don't want you to freak out because of this. This is the Ten of Swords is not a pretty card, but um, you might feel stabbed in the back by what happens. The other thing that might happen is if this is custody or legal, you might think that somebody really comes out of the blue. Like, again, you thought things were in a good place, and then out of the blue you get hit with something really bad, like maybe you get sued for something, or, and I don't want you to freak out, I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but because the other thing you got to remember is the Nine of Swords is the fear of that. It's the fear of that. So maybe you were trying to give yourself a break, and you come back and you're seeing more emails about your child, or more emails, and you are paralyzed with fear that it's going to become a Ten of Swords situation. I'm not positive that that's going to happen, but what I'll say is that this would not be a surprise situation, because these emails are going to be what tells you whether or not it's real or not, whether or not that dark horse is going to come out of the corner of your eye and get you. But I will say that whatever the situation is that you are feeling really defeated by it. It could also potentially be, I'm not seeing, the funny thing is I'm not seeing any Pentacles cards, so I don't think that this is a money related, but I do think that this might be slander. That's the other thing that I'm kind of getting, is because we've got a lot of wands and we got a lot of swords, and the swords are words. And anytime I see birds, I definitely think of posts. Their texts, their emails, their posts, their citations, their anything digital that could totally, you know, cut you, right? And what I'm almost getting is, the other thing that I can kind of get is that maybe you were trying to help someone, and the other thing is this is a very juvenile energy. So the other thing that I can get is that maybe somebody, could be an ex-spouse or whomever's involved, goes on social media and totally blasts you. Either that, or they blow up your phone with really negative, or some kind of problem that really keeps you awake at night totally blows up because of the situation. But the one thing, okay, and we'll talk about this next week when we talk about the 10, is the 10, the beautiful thing about the 10 is that there's no other pain that can come after that. The 10 is it. The 10 is it. It's the put a fork in a card. So whatever happens with this, whatever you're afraid of, if it has come to culmination, it was, yes, it's bloody, it's painful, but after this, it's done. After this, it is done. You know, the other thing is that I don't think that I don't think that this would be completely blindsided, because these birds, you would be aware of what this pertains to. You know, it's just overnight it's going to blow up into something that's a real worrisome situation. The other thing that I can get is maybe you are really, really worried about, maybe it's either affecting your mental health, or you're worried about the mental health of a child, right? And this can be a young adult, you know, it's just someone who's manifesting in page energy. That can be someone in their 20s, right? It can be someone in their 20s that's acting like they're 12. Now, the future of this energy is actually pretty bright, which I'm glad for. The other thing that I kind of get from this is it's almost like all of this pain is more in your head, it's in your psyche. I think this situation did more psychological damage to you than it actually did damage in the physical world. Because again, I'm not seeing pentacles, I'm seeing more in your head. But it still hurt. The other thing is I do get the feeling like there's something public going on, something tweets or something. But in the future, we got the Five of Wands. And the Five of Wands is, you see, it's in this deck, it's a little bit more playful, but you definitely sense it's a conflict card. It's a conflict card. And the other thing is you get more children, right? You get more children in this. So what I kind of get from this is that in the future, whatever caused this pain or the fear, I think it's more of a fear in your head that this is going to happen. Whatever occurred, it's going to linger on, because the other thing is we're going from the Four of Swords to the Five of Wands. So it is going to carry on, but it's almost going to be that real juvenile kind of petty conflict. Maybe, and again, if this is legal, maybe, you had to do battle against, maybe you did have to go to court against an ex, and you end up, taking your hits, and then in the future it's just going to be little petty things like, well, you need to go pick them up at this time. Well, yeah, I'm not going to your house, da da da, and you're just kind of like, you're over it. You're over it. And that's actually kind of nice. It is still going to be conflict, but I am getting a sense that, you know what, you're going to have you've had your moment. And the other thing is, this is present. It's almost like you're afraid of how this person's going to make you look on social media, or how they're going to project you to be. And then as you go forward, they're going to continue to be juvenile like that, and you're just going to have to deal with it. But at least in the future, you see how they're at least at an arm's length, right? Yes, they are still immature. Yes, they are still, I have a feeling it's going to be just stupid stuff. It's going to be irritating. And you know what I'm kind of hearing? I'm hearing romper room. Again, it's almost like you have to. The other thing that I'm kind of getting is that if this involves a child, it could be a clique. The other thing that I kind of get is that if this is you and it doesn't involve a child, maybe someone was really kind of, tormenting you. Possibly, there was some kind of fight with someone, and, you were ignoring the tweets at first, and then it became a full on, kind of an annihilation. And then in the future, you've distanced yourself from this person. You've moved past the anguish. The pain is over, but you're still going to feel the consequences. Like, you might still have to deal with this person in some respect, or you might, but I do think that it is going to just be petty irritations. It's almost like putting up with their romper room behavior. The other thing is that it might involve other people. If it does involve a child, maybe they can, it's going to be, maybe there was a really bad falling out with someone, and then in the future it's almost like you still have to deal with these people, but every single time you go up against them, it's just kind of like, again, who has the bigger stick? I always see, who's the winner, and no one's the winner. No one wins in the Five of Wands. It's just that, it's like that petty conflict kind of card. The one last way I can read it is that maybe you made some kind of decision to step back from something. Maybe you took a break and you were very confident, okay, everything will be fine. And then you come back and everything is not fine. And maybe you were ignoring emails and stuff like that. And then it resulted in some kind of bad event, and someone really tore you apart. Again, slander. Someone really stabbed you. Possibly someone stabbed you in the back and said that you were being negligent. And then in the future, it's almost like it's just competition. It's almost like who you can trust and who you can't, moving forward. But all of this still happened, right? Someone still came out of the woodwork and, stabbed you, took you out. So it's almost like you have to deal with it in the future, and it's just more annoying than anything. And it kind of brings to light, you know who's petty and who's not. But so that could pertain to a work situation. I don't see any pentacles, but it could be that, just because, work environments, just like home environments or friend environments, it can be a lot of sorts, it can be a lot of talk. But the card that you got Invest in Spirit. And this is a really gorgeous card. It's number 45, and that boils down to 9. It says, the ego discourages time and energy spent on developing and strengthening your spirit, calling it wasteful and impractical. Your spirit, however, knows that anytime you invest in this self-care, it will return to you 1,000-fold or more in terms of happiness, peace of mind, and abundance in the outer world. Don't hesitate to invest in what's most important to your spirit now. It may be, turn the page, investment of time to pray or meditate, in books to discover more about your spirit, or in a class or seminar to learn from a teacher. It may be an investment in a community in order to congregate with others, seeking a higher vibration as well. Whatever type of resource is called for, see its value and know that, in accordance with divine law, you get what you give. Supply your spirit with the time, energy, and support it needs in order to be strengthened and grow. There are no more worthwhile investments right now. So I'm really getting a sense that, and with him camping, maybe you stepped from work or something. Maybe you stepped away from some kind of, maybe you stepped away from some kind of project because you needed kind of a break. And maybe somebody, while you were gone, someone really kind of, made you, and then you feel guilty about it. Like, why did I step away? But you needed to, right? If this is work related, yes, there are crucial times, but if it's one of those things where every 2 weeks there's some other big project rolling out, it's kind of up to you to decide whether or not that's taking a really hard toll on you. But it is telling you that you taking time for yourself is not the problem, right? Right? But I do get a little bit worried because it's like, it's almost like something came out of the blue to get you, right? But and then in the future it's like putting up with childish behavior, or putting up with conflict. It's competition, right? It's competition. It's almost like if you take time for yourself, someone else will come in and try to take your position, or try to tear you down. Maybe that's what you're worried about. Maybe you're worried about that. You think that if you take a break that, someone's gonna, take your spot, or debunk you, demote you. But what it's telling you is it's real important. Your spiritual growth is real important, and you see that little tree growing, that little sprout, I think you do need to care for yourself. I think that's important. The other thing is that it talked about, meditation, especially when you're feeling this kind of level of anxiety. But that 10 is not a pretty card. And I do think that, if someone did stab you while while your guard was down, or while you were, taking care of yourself, you do, that would kind of keep you awake at night. If you have to worry about who you can trust and who you can't. But I do think it's a lot of self-care. It's a lot of self-care, and definitely, don't put up with anybody else. Don't I know it's easier said than done. You have to manage romper room, but you don't have to, you don't have to put up with anybody being childish with you. But all right, guys, so wow, we knew it was going to be a powerful one. I'm so glad that we went with the oracle cards, because they really did bring a lot of insight. But this concludes the How to Tarot for the Nine of Swords. I hope that you found it insightful and that it helped. I know it's a tough card, and next week we're going to be talking about the conclusion. We're going to come to the conclusion of the sword suit. We're going to talk about the dreaded 10. And again, there are no bad cards, so we're going to face it with no fear. We're going to learn what's good about the 10. But if you're so inclined, if you'd like the content of my channel, I would be very honored if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. Otherwise, if you please join me on Saturday for another reading. We're going to be hosting the weekly energy card reading, and I hope that I can see you then. Catch you later. Bye.